Hello Sackville, I hope you're all well. My name is Mr. Glyn Thomas, I teach computer science and I'm here to help you. I know Mr. Godfrey, Mr. Vlandy Godfrey, I used to work with him in a previous existence, so please do introduce yourself, say hello in the comments, it'd be great to hear from you. It tends to start fairly quiet and then people start to join in. So what's my role? I'm going to take you through all of the J277 syllabus from start to end between now and the exam. And you've roughly got, no stress intended, about 29 computer science lessons left until the exam. So this is really a way of you being able to organise your revision and just do one thing a week. So with each of these, I'll be giving you some flashcards and there'll be a quiz that you can do. And if you can stay on top of that, that should really, really help you. So please do say hello, introduce yourself, and I can say, I can welcome you into the stream. So without any further ado, I'm going to kick off at the most logical place, which is the beginning, and that is system architecture. System architecture is all about the CPU. And there are it's a fairly technical topic. It's always the first thing on the syllabus, first thing in the exam, system architecture. So let's jump in straight away and see what it's all about. So first of all, this is from the specification. So you're aware what we're going to be doing. This involves looking at the purpose of the CPU, what it does, and that's just one sentence. And then what the different parts of the CPU actually do. And broadly speaking, you've got two things to worry about. You've got lots of memory stores, which are called registers, and then you've got sort of the component parts, like the control unit and the ALU. So your job is to be able to explain what these things are and what they do. And then I suppose at a sort of higher level, it's then a question of can you actually talk about sort of the different registers and the different sorts of information that they hold. So that's what you're going to be looking for. Von Neumann will dip a little bit into von Neumann as well, but the architecture that we're looking at is the von Neumann architecture because it was invented by a guy called John von Neumann. Do please say hello, don't be shy. No one's been brave enough to do it yet. So let's see if that changes. What you don't need to know, and I want to sort of make you aware of this because it can be confusing, there is a thing called a specification. If you've not found it online, just type in J277. That's the one that you're doing. And that gives you a list of things that you need to know. It's so simple that even teachers can understand it. So literally, when I'm teaching this course, I will look at the specification and think, right, I've got to teach that, that, and that. That's how we do it. You don't need to know about the passing data between registers, so you don't need to go in that level of detail. But I'll take you through what it is that you need to understand for this. Now, this is a massive mind map which I'll send to you, and it's far too big to make any sense to you from here. But this is the entire topic, a knowledge organizer, if you will, which I will send to Mr. Vlandy Godfrey and he can give to you. And this might help to keep your revision more focused so you can see the different parts, the different sort of topics that you need to know within this area of system architecture. And the architecture really is just how they arrange the different parts within the CPU. So that's what we're looking at. We've got 4 people, we've got 5 people here now. So that's looking pretty good. All right, so let's crack on with the next thing. And I'll get on for the probably 15 to 20 minutes of teaching. Don't forget, I'm here to help you. So if I'm going through something and it makes no sense, just in the comments type, what does that mean? I don't understand that part, and I'll go back and do it. That's why I'm here. I am here to help you. Okay, so imagine the scenario. You're at the start of May, you've got your exam, computer science, it's nearly always, if not the first, one of the first exams. You sat on a wobbly desk with a see-through pencil case in a big hall full of people. You open the paper and it will ask you a question, something like, what is the purpose of the CPU? And this could be worth 2 marks, 3 marks, 4 marks. And simply what is here is what you need to say. The CPU, the purpose of the CPU is that it carries out the fetch, decode, execute cycle. And we'll jump into more on that in a second. What does that mean? You fetch instructions, you decode them, and you execute instructions. Those 3 simple phrases could well get you off to a flying start and get you 3 marks right at the beginning. So you fetch the next instruction from memory, you decode it, and then you execute it. You know the words that are underlined here? These are the ones that keep appearing in the mark scheme. So when they mark this, they want to see that you've got a vocabulary that's really, that shows that you're a computer scientist, rather than saying getting. Rather than saying it's big, say capacity. Do you understand? So think about using words that add precision to your answers, because it's really important. Otherwise you start to lose 1 mark here or 1 mark there, and you get to the end of the paper and you're a grade down on where you could be, even though you actually know what you're doing. I'm going to come back to this slide in a second, but this is the sort of level 7, 8, 9 knowledge where it's about what exactly is handed from one particular element to the other. So, for example, in the fetch, in the fetch part of the cycle, the memory address is copied from the PC to the MAR. The instruction in MAR is copied to the MDR, and the PC is incremented. Now, you're probably looking at that and going, "Oh, he started talking double Dutch here. This makes no sense." I will come back to this. But I'm hoping that by the time that you know what a PC, an MAR and an MDR is, this might actually make some sense. But this is more of your, like I said, grade 7, 8, 9, okay? So I will jump back to this, and I'm hoping it'll make a little bit more sense to you. So we have got 7, welcome. No one yet brave enough to say hello. You're lurking. Say hello. Okay, common components. So you've got to worry about 4 main areas. The first one is the control unit. The control unit is the Arsene Wenger, it's the Eric Ten Hag, although how much of a controller he is up to you. It's the boss. It is the element that is in charge, that's making all of the things happen. But to be precise about that, you want to say something like, it's the control signals required to coordinate the running of the processor. So it sends control signals around the entire system, including, so in terms of marking here, control signals required to coordinate running the processor, 1 mark, including movement of data, 2 marks, and decoding instructions. So you've got 3 different elements in there, okay? It's about moving data around. So this is the boss, don't use the word brain, but this is the boss that's making everything happen. So that's the first and I guess the most important one, but there's a second unit which is the ALU. And this is like a super powered calculator which does all of the calculations. But if you cast your mind back to what you've done before, it's not just the maths, it's also the logic. You know, and, or, not, all that sort of stuff, equal to, not equal to. Think about your Boolean logic, A and not C, all of that stuff, those logic gates. Because fundamentally, inside the CPU, if you could look at it through a highly powerful microscope, there'd be millions of these gates, in fact, possibly trillions of these gates, which are all part of the decision-making process. So the ALU, it's a calculator. Now then we come to the third thing, and that was this, do you remember all the MDR, MAR, PC, all of that? These are simply blocks of memory, which are used by the different components. And they're used as part of the fetch, decode, execute cycle. The CPU is a machine. And if you think back to the sort of videos you get served up on, I don't know, TikTok, where you've got like a chain link fence being made, where you've got your piece of metal and the first thing bends it, the next one twists it, the third one puts the other piece in, something else bends it again. It's exactly what this CPU does. It's just doing fetch, decode, execute, fetch, decode, execute. Each of the individual activities that it's doing, each cycle, could be relatively simple, like read this from memory. Then it could be store that there. Then it could be take that and add that. It's literally all of these individual instructions are really simple, but the fact is it does it does them at such a speed. Think about the latest iPhones. They're about a trillion of these per second. A trillion fetch, decode, execute cycles per second. That's your clock speed. So it gives you, even though it's doing really simple things, when you scale it up and do it at that kind of speed, it's possible to achieve quite phenomenal things. Okay, where did we get to? We got to the registers, and these are the CPU's own memory store. And they've got really fast specialized registers. And these are really vital in terms of the fetch, decode, execute cycle. And lastly, we've got cache. I'll tell you what the definition of cache is shortly, but it is memory. It's not as fast as the registers, so all of these two elements here, it's all memory, but it's memory used for a specific purpose. I want to also get you to think about memory in terms of some memory being faster than others, but also that the fewer memory slots you have, the quicker it is to find things. So for example, if at home you've got a cupboard that's got 3 drawers in it, you're going to find stuff X quickly. If you've got a cupboard that's got 30 drawers in it, even though all the drawers are the same size, it's probably going to take you longer to find it because you've got more drawers to look through. So this is the same with the CPU. If you've got a smaller amount of memory, it doesn't take as long to look through it, but it can't hold as much data. All right, and I know that's sort of oversimplifying it, but that's why, in particular, the registers here, they've got very small capacity. Notice I'm saying it's not big or small. They've got a small capacity. They don't hold. We've got 17 in. That's really good. No one's been brave enough to say hello. Who will be the first? Well, let's see. Okay, lastly, we're going to look at cache. Cache holds frequently used instructions. That's the definition I was talking about a minute ago. That'll be in the exam. What does cache do? It holds frequently used instructions. So it's a bit like if you look around yourself now and you're sat at home, the stuff that is nearest you are the things that you're going to use the most often. So, I mean, I dare say your phone's going to be quite close to you. I dare say you might have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or a Coke or whatever. So all that stuff that you've got next to you and on your desk, you've got the pen that you like to use most often, you've got your favourite pad, whatever it is. You've got the game that you play the most often sitting near your Xbox or in it. That is cache. And that's what it's used for, is the data you're going to use the most often is going to be kept there because it saves having to go to RAM and get it each time because it takes more time. So it's all about doing things as quickly as possible. So that is cache. Right, let's go on to the next one. So I'm now going to go through these different components. I've talked about them a little bit earlier, but I'm going to go into them in more detail now. Where are we? 12 minutes in. This is fine. If, while I'm going, you want to have a look at this here, this is a diagram of the inside of a CPU. Now, in reality, it looks nothing like this. So this is really just gives you an indication of what's there. But for the purpose of your GCSE, this is what they expect you to know. So this is, let's go up to here and look first of all at the control unit up here. So the key things that you need to say, and these are all, I have harvested all of the exam papers so that you've got exactly what you need in here. All the fat has been trimmed. There's no wasted words here. The control unit is responsible for decoding instructions. It runs the FDE cycle and it sends signals to control all of these things here, okay? So if they ask you anything about the control unit, and they do love to give these, you've seen them, the questions where they give you a table and they'll do a definition and you've got to tick which one is which. This sort of area is ripe for those sorts of questions, okay? So make sure that you know what the control unit does and make sure you can explain at least one of these and recognise all of them. All right, the second thing, if you remember here, was the ALU, and that is the calculator. What does it do? It performs mathematical and logical calculations. And that's it. It's just a super-powered calculator. All right, good. So we've got this here, which I'm going to talk to you about now. This is the CPU itself, okay? So if we look at this diagram, you can see that these different components that we've already covered, they're already here. So here you've got the control unit. This is the boss. But this control unit needs its own memory. And then we've got some more memory registers here. And then we've got the ALU, the arithmetic logic unit. This is the calculator. And the calculator has the accumulator, which is its own memory. It's like a scratch pad, like a clipboard, where it saves a couple of numbers that it might want to go and use later on. Okay, so hopefully this is starting to sort of form in your head slightly that these are the different areas of your computer. I still can't believe you've been too shy to say hello. That is extraordinary. Anyway, Let's go on to the next one. Right, registers. So registers are super-powered little tiny blocks of memory, and they've all got different roles in the fetch, decode, execute cycle. Definition: they're low capacity, so they don't hold much data, and they're very high speed. And that means they're high read-write speeds. They're quick to write data to, and they're quick to read data from. So that's what we mean by speed. So don't say fast, talk about read-write speeds. These little changes to the way that you answer the question really means that you'll be gaining marks all the way through. So for a 3-mark question, you're getting 2 or 3 rather than 1. That's the aim here. Right, so that's the definition of a register. The first one is the accumulator, which you can see down here on our diagram, okay? And that one, the definition of what it does, it stores the intermediate results of calculations carried out in the ALU. Okay, well that's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? So the calculations we know happen in the ALU, the calculator, which is here, but it might need to add 2 things together, or it might need to hold something in memory while it does another calculation and then adds them together or subtracts them. So that's where the accumulator comes in, that it's there to hold these little bits of information, okay? So 13 so far. Decent. Hope some will join. Do say, no one's been brave enough to say hello yet. Okay, then we've got the MAR. The giveaway with the MAR is this letter A. And this comes to our next idea, is that within this architecture and within the CPU, the addresses and the data are treated differently. Think about it like posting a parcel. You need to know where the parcel's going, that is, the address. But you need to also have the parcel itself, that's the data, okay? So that's why you've got an address register and a data register. So the address register, if you don't have the address, you don't know where in memory something is stored. And the address could be 2000, 3000 or 3284. It's a place on your solid state drive. So say for example when you open a photo on your phone, that photo has a memory location that it's stored in. And there's an index that stores where that is, like a phone book. Not that you know what a phone book is now, but like an address book that will store where it is. So that's why addresses are so important. And the data is the data itself, the thing that you're going to use. And it's either going to be data or it's going to be an instruction, okay? Because all computer programs consist of is data and instructions. So the instruction might be take this piece of data, which you need, and add it to that piece of data. And the last bit of the jigsaw is you need to know where it is, and that's where the address comes in. So that's why, if you look over here, you've got a memory address register and you've got a memory data register. And that's important for von Neumann, okay? That's what makes this architecture. John von Neumann was a guy who lived in sort of around about the Second World War. He was a physicist, he was a polymath, he was good at all sorts of things. He was a super clever guy, very able mathematician. He actually, if you've watched the film on the atomic bomb, Oppenheimer, he was part of the Manhattan Project. So he was a big mover and shaker at that time. And it's he that designed this architecture for the CPU, and it's remained with us ever since the 40s. So it works pretty well. It's not perfect, but it works pretty well. All right, so that is the memory address register. And what does it store? And by the way, I want to go back to there. What does it store? It stores the address, so where the data that's going to be fetched from RAM is. It stores the location of where the data is stored in random access memory. And then you've got the MDR, which is this guy here. And so once it's been fetched, that's where the data is actually held. So you've got where, here, and you've got what. So your MAR is where it is, where the data is, and your MDR is the data. So in that sense, it's starting to make a bit more sense to you, hopefully. Your program counter holds the next instruction to be fetched from memory. Well, you might think, well, hang on, what's the difference between the memory address register and the PC? Well, the difference is the PC just clicks on to the next one, and once the PC loads up with the next instruction, where the next instruction is, then it just drops that into the MAR. So if you look at our little diagram over here, the PC will populate and it will immediately, let's get my arrow, it'll immediately drop it into the memory address register. And then the content of this memory address register is grabbed from RAM and it's brought into the memory data register. It's quite a mouthful. I hope that makes sense. I've got a video on this channel about how the CPU works. If you watch that a few times, I actually show how the different registers interact, and you might need to watch that a few times. And once you get it, you can absolutely guarantee the questions that will be there for this topic. If you look at the past paper from 5 years ago, the questions are exactly the same. It's just a series of facts that you need to learn. And yes, you've got to sit down and learn them, but it isn't that difficult. And once you've been through it 3 or 4 times, it might take you 5 minutes to go through the flashcards that Mr. Vallely Godfrey will give you. Once you've done that a few times, it really is straightforward, and you can harvest marks and do really well on this part of the paper. All right, let's push on to the next one. This looks like a lot, but I'm again focusing on these 4 different registers because they always ask a question on it. Go and watch that video, watch it a few times, and then you can see what each of these different blocks of memory do. And as long as you're able to produce one of these phrases for each one, so for example, the MAR starting up here, and we know that the A stands for address, it's where things are, and all you've got to say is, it's where data will be read. That's it. And all you've got to say for the MDR is where the data instruction is fetched, read from memory. It stores the data or instruction that's fetched from memory. You've got the program counter, and notice this word next in here, it stores the location of the next instruction, and you've got the accumulator, which stores the result of calculations. So you've got 4 different phrases to learn there and to be able to recognize what they do. And they very often do 3, 4, 5, 6 marks on this. So yeah, it's a bit dry to go away and learn it, but if you go and learn just these set phrases that go with these different registers, you can absolutely nail this part of it, because paper 2 is less predictable, but paper 1, this part, honestly, you can just predict exactly what they're going to do because they never change it. So use those flashcards. I just recommend spending maybe 5-10 minutes and do that once or twice a week. Try and interrupt that forgetting curve. Go back and do it in 2 weeks' time. And pretty soon you'll be looking at these and you can just say, oh yeah, that's the MAR, that's the MDR. It all sounds a bit alien, but you are looking at a machine that you don't see, so it is a bit alien. This particular sort of way of demonstrating the CPU, I've tried to put everything on one page. So the diagram here, this is again the von Neumann architecture, and this is everything that we've discussed so far, except I've used arrows to show where the data moves. So for example, at the start of the fetch, decode, execute cycle, the program counter increments by 1. Increments means increases. So if you think about it, if you think about a program that you run, you know that programs run in lines, line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, line 5, okay? So that's what it's called sequence, isn't it? So sequence is when it starts at line 1 and the program runs through until the end of the program, unless it's interrupted by iteration, by a loop, a count-controlled loop or a condition-controlled loop. So at the start of the fetch, decode, execute cycle, whatever address is stored in the program counter here is moved on to the next address. Now, then, this information in the program counter, let's say it's location 1000, is dropped into here. And then, wherever that is in memory, in RAM, which is here, is then found, and it's dropped back into here, into the MDR. That's gone blue. Let's get rid of that. It's dropped back into the MDR, which is here. It sounds complicated. Watch the video a couple of times, because if you're able to nail this particular part, then that means you can go for those 7, 8, 9 grades. So what I've tried to do here in terms of knowledge is just put everything that you need to know about these components on one page, but you've also got the diagram there to help you, all right? So I hope that is really useful. And I'm going to really quickly jump back to this one for the benefit of those of you who are aiming for the very, very top grade in this. And I won't spend ages over this, but if we go back to here, hopefully this will make a little bit more sense now when you can see that we're talking about copying the memory address register from the PC to the MAR. So try to work with the information on here, and I won't go through these all laboriously because it'll just take too long. But this is the very top level information that you need for it. So once you know what the PC, the MAR and the MDR and the accumulator are for super fast chunks of memory that each serve a different purpose in the fetch, decode, execute cycle. Okay, they're like the servants that are helping to hold all the information so the FDE can actually work. Good. All right, so that's the sort of the CPU bit of it. What I want to get onto now is the next chunk, which is just some facts that you need to know, and we'll jump into clock speed. They love asking about clock speed. So I guess the first thing to say is that a CPU has something called a clock, and the clock it governs the speed at which the FDE cycles are done, and it's measured in fetch, decode, execute cycles, which is quite a mouthful, per second. That's what clock speed is. So when you go and buy a computer and you see that it's a 3.5 gigahertz computer, that means, and here it is, I happen to choose that one, a 3.5 gigahertz processor performs 3.5 billion of these fetch, decode, execute cycles per second, okay? And it's measured in hertz. So HZ with a capital H and a small z. They didn't do a question on that this year, so I fancy they might do that for you. Not that you can question spot like that. 14 people, no one able to say hello yet. Hopefully when it comes to the quiz, you might dare to do it. The fact sheet here will hopefully be useful for you. I've kind of covered quite a lot of this, but just in terms of key principles, a program, let's do it here, a program consists of data and instructions, okay? And obviously you need to know where those data and instructions are, and that's where the address register is, and you need to know what the data and instructions are, and that's the data register. So CPU measured in clock speed, I've done that. Contains registers, done that. And the characteristics of a CPU are clock speed, cores, and cache size. And we'll come on to those other two in a moment. But the key takeaways from this are that the CPU performance is measured in clock speed. If you're looking at a car's performance, you would say a Bugatti Veyron is measured in miles an hour. It can do 200 and whatever it is miles an hour, and it can do 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. Well, a CPU is measured with clock speed, and it's measured in the number of fetch, decode, execute cycles it can do per second. And rather than being measured in miles an hour, it's measured in hertz. Right, so that is CPU performance. I fancy that'll be in your paper, actually. I want to draw your attention to this very pretty little thing that I did down here for you. And this is about memory. Memory is, of course, so important. And next week, I'll be talking about RAM and ROM and primary and secondary storage. If any of that's confusing to you, make sure you're there for that. And I wanted to draw your attention to this diagram because there are some important things here. Because you by now should understand a few of these. We talked about the memory registers over here that sit inside the CPU. We've then got cache that we'll talk about on this slide. And then we've got RAM, which is your primary storage, which is where everything that you're doing is held. All the data and programs you're currently using are held in RAM. And then you've got virtual memory, which we'll come to in a bit. And then we're pretty much at the end of the topic once we've covered all of those. So let's jump back to this and have a look at CPU performance. Where are we? Half an hour. CPU performance. I am leaving 15 minutes at the end for questions, but based on the silence so far, it will be quite a short 15 minutes, but I'm here to help you. CPU performance, cache. Cache stores frequently used instructions, frequently used data and instructions. If you just learn that, you will get 1 mark in your computer science exam. Fact. What else do we know about cache? Characteristics of cache. It's built into the CPU, okay? It is other characteristics, it's memory, and it's super fast. It's got super fast read-write speeds. Notice how much I've banged on about read-write speeds. Don't just say it's fast. Don't talk about memory and say it's big, because that's like saying a mountain's big. If you're saying big, it's got a large capacity, or it's got a small capacity. It's got fast or slow read-write speeds. Okay, that's what you need to go for. So, the last bit of information that you need to know about it is that the larger the cache is, the faster that these frequently used instructions and data are brought into the processor and used. So say, for example, you use your computer mainly for, I don't know, surfing the web. The data and instructions that you need to do that can be held in cache, okay? And of course your web browser's got a separate cache, but we're not getting into that now. So there are 3 levels of cache usually in a computer. There we go. Level 1, level 2 and level 3. These guys here, I'll just draw a line across there. Not always, there can be 4, there can be 2, but often there are 3 levels of cache in the computer. The level 1 cache, and back to my beautiful diagram here, the level 1 cache is the smallest one. See, this is the size here. Do you see that? This relates to size. In other words, the capacity. Having just said don't use the word size. The level 1 cache has the smallest capacity, level 3 cache the largest capacity, and also as you go from 1, 2, 3, and as you start from the registers and go down to virtual memory, these are further away from the CPU, okay? They're further away from the core, and they get larger. The capacity increases as it gets further away, but the read-write speeds over here, how many arrows can I draw? Quite a lot, it turns out. They increase. So it's worth having a look at that, because conceptually the fact is that the memory that sits on the CPU is super fast but small capacity. The memory that sits furthest away, like RAM and virtual memory, is much larger capacity, but it's not as fast. Because you want the fastest memory closest to it for the sort of really to do those really speedy sort of parts of the FDE cycle. All right. I hope that makes sense. So let's go on to this one here and get rid of my arrows. They love a question on cores. So cores relates to a central processing unit. So for example, if you went to settings and had a look at the computer you're using at home, you might find that it's got more than one CPU core. It's got more than one processor. So these days computers can have 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, depends how much money you want to throw at it. Lots and lots of cores, which of course means that you have more processing power. There you go. More cores means more performance. If you've got more performance, it also allows you to it allows different instructions from the same program to be run at the same time. Let me unpick that slightly. A program has to be written so that it can be executed by multiple cores. And if that program's been written to allow multiple core use, which they all are now, it means that you can have sort of 4 separate, say for a quad-core computer, you can have 4 different FDE cycles going on at the same time. So they're all doing different parts of the program. So that's one of the advantages. So they might say, what would be the benefit of having more than one core? And you could say, more cores means more performance. If they want more from you than that, you can say it means that it means that you can use parallel processing. And lastly, it means that you can multitask. And multitask means that you can use more than one program at the same time. So for example, if you're running something like, I don't know, an old MacBook Air, and you try and do some video editing, and you get it all set up, and you click the go button to make it edit. If you then try doing anything else, it'll just be super slow, because all of its power, all of the CPU power is being used to do that one thing. But you can multitask far better if you have multiple cores. They also do something quite sneaky sometimes, where they'll say Alicia has a computer with I don't know, with 3.5 gigahertz, a 3.5 gigahertz computer. She's also got one that is a quad-core 1 gigahertz computer. Which one is faster? And so you need to recognise that if it's quad-core, that means there are 4 of them. So although it's only a 1 gigahertz, each one is only 1 gigahertz. You've got 4 of them, so it gives you 4 in total. So it would be the 4 times 1 that's faster. And it's always pretty fundamentally easy math you've got to do there. Right, next, we are almost there, ladies and gentlemen. So, embedded systems, nice easy question. They love an embedded system question. So that's why I have put a image of a drone here, because a drone doesn't require programming, although maybe some drones do. Maybe a better example would be a remote control car. It doesn't require programming. It's only got a few functions. It can go forwards, it can go backwards, it can go left, it can go right. That's it. So in which case, they've all got in common the fact that they perform specific, limited range of functions. So there are your marks for that. And it's the definition is it's a computer system embedded into other electrical equipment. So it's a sort of scaled down CPU, and it's been designed for a specific purpose. What's the benefit? Well, they're much cheaper. They're much cheaper to make, they're much cheaper to design. And you wouldn't use a 3.5 gigahertz core to power something like a toaster or a fridge. So when they ask for examples, which they often do, don't say phones, don't say tablets, because actually phones are programmable. So stick with trusty things like remote control car or washing machine, tumble dryer, fridge, those sorts of things, because they do have embedded systems, they do have CPUs. If you think about a washing machine, it's got, I don't know, 6 to 10 cycles, and that's it. It's only got 6 or 10 things that need to be programmed, so it's a limited number of functions. Right, that is your embedded systems, done and dusted. We have sailed through this. Where are we? 36. It is time for quizzes, so let's run the music and get on with that. Now this is where we'll find out if you actually are brave enough to answer any quizzes, because I'm not going to answer these for you. So this is the ALU. So all you've got to do is in the comments, let's see if you're brave enough, answer question 1. I'm going to wait you out for this one. So what is it that the ALU does? Does it do any maths or logic problems? Does it send out control signals for B? Does it store data inside the CPU? Or does it hold specific data for the fetch, decode, execute cycle? What do we think? Is anyone going to put an A, a B, a C or a D into the comments? Someone's got to break the ice. Someone's got to do it. How hard can it be? A, B, C or D? I'll just wait. I'm sure it won't take you long. No one's commented yet. A, B, C or D? Somebody type something in. What's the worst that can happen? Oh no, one person's left. That must have been bad. Blimey. Really? Well, okay. So nobody wants to come up. What is it, A, B, C or D? Someone tell me. No, okay, all right, okay. Well, because usually when you do a quiz, it involves people answering questions. Never mind. So the answer is A, that it does any maths or logic problems for the CPU. We've got 7 people here. Come on, we've had 14 here. One of you 7, be brave enough to answer the next one. Otherwise, I'm going to start losing the will to live, frankly. What about this one? Inside the CPU, you will find ALU, CU, registers and cache memory, ALU, PC, MBR and RAM. This is can you recognise the different components we just talked about. RAM, ADU, PC and MDR, and AIU, CU, registers and cache memory. Which of these are you going to find inside the CPU? Come on, one of the 7 of you here, take a gamble. We'll go for some more exciting music while I wait. I have to get Mr. Vallani Godfrey to explain to me the principles of a quiz. The principles of a quiz are somebody asks a question Okay, well, East Grinstead's quite quiet tonight, clearly. So let's go on to the answer here. It's these guys here. It's the ALU, the CU, registers in cache memory. Let's try the next one, shall we? Because this one you're bound to answer, given how chatty you've been so far. I've never sat on one of these. I appreciate I'm not your teacher. You don't know me. I get that, but I am here to help you. The MAR stores the of data which is either being sent to or fetched from memory. What is it? Somebody type in. It's a missing word. It's a fill in the blank question. Obviously, you don't like multiple choice questions, so it must be that you love fill in the blank questions. I have to ask Mr. Godfrey whether you've all lost your voices today. He can explain to me. Oh, come on, someone answer a question. Okay, so, well, I'll tell you what, I'll answer it, because me, I know the answer. The answer is address. Well done. Really good. Okay, this is interesting. Anyway, another one, let's try this one. What about this? The first stage of the fetch, decode, execute cycle is... Actually, you won't get this one right because it's probably too hard. Let's try abuse instead, see if that works. What about this one? What is the first stage of the fetch, decode, execute cycle? Is it the PC is incremented? This is a higher level question. This is probably more like a 6, 7, 8, 9 type of question. What's the first thing that happens? This does involve going away and learning each of these off by heart. It's not the most exciting thing, but it's guaranteed to turn up. There's a whole grade boundary in this view at the start of the paper. So the first stage of the fetch, decode, execute cycle, is it that the PC is incremented? The instruction is decoded so it can be done. The next instruction is fetched from RAM, or the instruction is executed. What do we think, ladies and gentlemen? Just want to check to make sure this is working. Let's try this. Hello. Yeah, the chat's working for me. Ah, oh look, someone's made a comment. Oh, it was me. Well, what do we think the answer is? Any ideas? Any ideas at all? Do we have a clue what the answer is? Let's see. Okay, so the first thing is I can tell you that the answer is the PC is incremented. Oh, sorry, the next instruction is fetched from RAM. That's actually incorrect. It's the PC incremented. It's A. All right, let's go to this one. Select the registers of the CPU. Can you recognise which 4 we talked about? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. So one of those is not a register. Which of them are registers? We've got ALU, ACC. In fact, sorry, you've got 3 registers there. Can anyone tell me which 3 of those are registers? Oh, it said chat rate 2, and the chat rate was me. Hello, any ideas? Anyone like to answer a question? Any ideas? What about this one? Okay, well, I'll do one more, and then it's my time to. It is the ACC, the accumulator, the MDR, the memory data register, and then we've got the MAR, the memory address register. So those are the 3. Okay, we've got 7 people here. None of you are answering questions. Last one, unless someone answers it, because it's 1:45, and at 1:45 I will stop to answer any questions that you may be having. But I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. So, which of these are the components of the CPU? Is it A, B, C, D, or E? Well, it'll be a few of them. You've got a couple of components in there. Which of these belong inside the CPUs? Is it the CU, the ALU, ROM, ACC, or PC? Yeah, we've had 15 people here. We've got 6 people there. It's going between 6 and 7. I know it's year 11 and year 10. Interesting. I wonder which year group would be the first to say something. Okay, no problem. So let's go and look at the answer. It's the CU and the ALU. Right, well, there's no point in me carrying on with those because no one's answering any questions. So I will simply ask you a question. Is there any area of this that you would either like me to cover next week or any areas of the syllabus? Because I've got a plan to go through the entire specification between now and the exam. However, if there are areas that you feel that you're particularly weak on, that didn't work well, if you let me know in the comments, equally you can tell Mr. Valley Godfrey and he can tell me, but if there are any areas that you would like me to cover in particular because you find them hard, because don't forget, I am an extra tutor who's here. I'm not your teacher, I don't know you, but I do know the syllabus. So use me to try to help you get a better grade. That's why I'm here. So either pop your ideas into the comments or let Mr. Valley Godfrey know. So do any of you, all 8 of you, do any of you want to ask me any questions? I think I kind of know the answer to this already. East Grinstead is quiet. Never mind. All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed today. I hope to see you next week where we'll talk about memory and storage. Until then, I wish you well, and I will see you in a week's time. Bye-bye.